We didn't have it.
The
Well,
questions were? Okay.
yeah. They were on the desk when I got it.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a call meeting for the Loganville City Council. We're going to be here talking tonight about code rewriting and a couple other little things, but we'll get to those in just a second. I did want to start out, normally we don't do this, but I used this prayer in a municipal association meeting a few weeks ago, and it sort of, I love it. It sort of fits everything. A prayer for government leaders. Mighty God, we lift up our government leaders to you. Give them wisdom, integrity, and the heart for justice. Help them to lead with compassion and humility, always seeking the common good. Protect them from the temptations of power, selfish ambitions, and corruption, and guide them in making decisions that honor you. You refresh them as they lead and serve, and we pray they would be guided by the Holy Spirit. May our prayers support them in their roles and bring unity and cooperation for the betterment of our city. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Just for the roll call, Natalie Warnack, who is the city finance director, is not here tonight. And also Patty Wolf, who's one of the council members, is not here tonight. And with that, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it passes 5-1. Okay, we'll move right into Planning and Development Committee. Lisa Newberry.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight, I just wanted to kind of recap where we've been and where we're to tonight. Several months back, Paul and I had some discussions about a rezone rewrite. Can we do this? And the simple thing was, we just want to simply build better going forward. So as talking with staff, we decided, yes, that we could do that. It was needed. Brought it before council. Council decided to move forward. We posted a bid. 3 companies responded. Staff evaluated all 3 companies. 2 were invited to come back tonight and present. And then council sent questions to Danny in advance of tonight. So each company had a chance to answer those questions to us in writing. And each company tonight will have 5 to 10 minutes for an introductory and 20 minutes to present and review the questions and answers with mayor and council. Paul's going to be our timekeeper. And so at this time, by a literal flip of the coin, GMC won the coin toss and will present first.
Thank you so much.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here. That's a good background of what's happened, so I won't go through that again. My name is Glenn Coyne. I'm with a company called Goodwin Mills Kaywood. We go by GMC. The young man handing out our placemats to you is Kalanis Johnson. He works with me at GMC. And then we're also joined by Robin Caillou. She's with a company called Foresight Group. And we'll talk a little bit about our relationship and how we work together a little bit as we go forward. But we did bring the handout to you rather than a presentation, so you have something to look at and make notes on. It provides on the front just some of our projects that we've worked on, and on the back a little bit more about us, and then a summary of those top points that we made to the questions that you asked us. So hopefully that's helpful as we go through. We've been following your discussions online. Your videos are posted, and we've read the evaluations. We know we're in second place, so we were just talking as a team. We feel like it's halftime. We wanted to get the ball first in the second half, so we know we've got a great team that we're up against, and so we're just happy to be able to be here to talk with you and for you to meet us. And I think that was the goal that you wanted to have this meeting, is to see, are these folks that you can work with over the next year or so. So to prepare for tonight, I started making some notes. I made a bunch of comments. We talked as a group and came up with what we thought we wanted to tell you tonight. Then we received your questions. And your questions were exactly to the points that I had already written down. So anything I would have said in an introduction or in a PowerPoint, you asked us about. So the points that we needed to clarify based on our written proposal, you said, we want to hear about those from you. So hopefully you've read those and those answered the questions, and we can talk about that during the 20 minutes that we have. But again, I think that means that we're on the same wavelength with you. We kind of understood from hearing what you need to have done, what we need to help you with. Oh, sorry. And so we put our proposal together. We think it's pretty clear. We have a schedule that we provided. We provided you with what we thought was a reasonable amount of time to finish this work. We talked to you about our experience, and we talked about why we think we're the team to work on this with you. So one of the points on the handout on the back, if I have just a couple more minutes of my 5 minutes, is you mentioned to us that we don't have a whole lot of ordinances that we've written as a team, but we've done a lot of comprehensive plans. And so that was a point of conversation in the evaluation. And so the thing that we wanted to point out was that between Kalanis and Robin and I, we have all been planning directors for cities in Georgia. Between us, we've had 25 years of experience being planning directors in Georgia. So every day we had to work with zoning ordinances and administer them and update them and know what was happening with zoning. So the time that we weren't consultants doing code rewrites, we were busy just working day to day on code type activities. So that's why that looks a little bit different in our proposal than our worthy competitors. So we just wanted to make sure we pointed that out to you. So with that, that's really, again, I just wanted to make the point that your questions were right on target with what we would want to point out. If there's anything in there that we can clarify this evening, we're happy to do that. But we just want to let you know how much we would like to work with you on this. We're local. Although today there was a little traffic trying to get here from some of us, but we made it, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have about GMC and Foresight, and thank you again.
Okay. Council, questions?
I don't have a question, but I do want to just emphasize the importance of community engagement and transparency. Just want to make sure that through whoever is awarded this, that throughout the entire process that we do have community engagement and transparency.
You want to talk about that?
Good evening, Kalanis Johnson, Senior Planner with GMC. We have a mantra, a motto that we say, we don't do plans or zoning rewrites for you, we do it with you. And so to your question, ma'am, that's part of what we do. Whether it's a steering committee, a technical advisory committee, or just general public meetings, stakeholder meetings throughout the community, that's what we do. And we could easily submit something to you, give you a 3-ring binder in a year and walk away, but that's not your product. We want to make sure we get the necessary feedback from you all as leaders, from your department heads, as well as the community. And so public involvement outreach is a critical part of what we do. So that should be a problem.
Sure, thank you.
And I would just add on a couple of the photos on the front of the handout, when we do public meetings, we usually have what we call an open house set up where people go around the room and sometimes use stickers and sometimes use Post-it notes. And we really try to get people engaged, so we're not just making a speech to a room of people, but rather they're engaged with us in that process. So hopefully some of those photos convey that.
Great, thank you. Next.
I mean, can I ask more than, if somebody asks a question, then I
Yeah,
can
go
go.
ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Well, one thing I was just now thinking, because you're talking about how you have 25 years' experience combined, and I don't need to know specifically, what city do each of y'all live in?
Well, currently, I live over in the Augusta area.
Okay.
Robin lives down near Peachtree City, and Kalanis lives in Jonesboro.
Okay, so my question is, were y'all in any way involved in in the cities you live in? Were you involved in any of your ordinance writing or anything in your own cities?
We have an interesting history because not only have we worked together for decades, I started my career under Glenn at a much larger firm. And then as our careers kind of diverged, I went into public sector and worked for Peachtree City for 8 years, where we actually, as the city, hired GMC to do a UDO for us. It doesn't actually show up here because due to some political changes that occurred during that process, they canceled that product. However, we have already worked together really well and have both been in the shoes of walked the walk and talked the talk of what you guys have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So yes, that's
Okay.
very Yeah, and I live in Peachtree City and was also the community
Okay, well, the reason I'm
development
asking
director.
is because it's interesting to me, because where you live, are there any changes that y'all would make within your own city?
So as-
that's a fair
no, no,
question. You
as
live
a-
there, and,
Well, one of the things that our department did was we kept a spreadsheet of issues that we were constantly hitting, so that when we had the opportunity to fix them, we would. But what happens is when you do, I'll be frank, when you do that piecemeal rather than the way you all
Right.
are approaching this, you end up with all kinds of conflicts and errors in there. So while, yes, we did that and constantly worked on that, we would have liked to have done what you all are doing, which is a comprehensive rewrite.
okay. And I've got other questions, but we'll go down the road and come back.
And I'll just add two more things. One,
Okay.
there's a community I lived in where I served on the planning commission for 4 years. So I had to, every month, we had to go through the cases and listen to what we're doing. I think Kiwanis, we were on the economic
I
development,
was vice chairman.
vice chairman for the development authority where he lived. So yes, we've been
Right,
involved in our
because I
own
mean, it's a
communities.
lot different than yours over here writing for random.
And then we get to leave. That's
Right,
correct. Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
thank
We
you.
made decisions that affected our livelihood and our families
Correct.
and our quality of life.
Right, so you understand the position we're in. We're going to be making decisions, we live here. So I just wondered if y'all had any.
And there's another
work
good
where you were.
example that question brings up is about 17 years ago, I helped, partner and I wrote the brand-new ordinance for Lowndes County down in Valdosta. Well, they called me 2 years ago and said it's time for us to update that. So I wrote the first one, and they invited me back to help them update, as their experiences over the last 15 years. So things changed. There were uses that didn't exist then. They have wedding venues and all kinds of things that just didn't happen in the country. So, we get invited back, and that's what we like to do, is work with the community more than once, so.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just go right down the line.
we'll go
Skip,
down and come back
Skip,
around
do
so
you
everybody
have
has
any
fair time.
questions? Skip,
So, ma'am?
do you have any questions?
No, we're going down to the
Okay,
council.
Bill,
Anybody?
Ann?
Okay, the question I had, I was gonna wait till the end. We would love to see a lot of citizen introduction to the process and get their feelings on it. I have found with other studies, it's very difficult, and I don't know what we could do about it, doing some kind of application that asks certain questions maybe. But many times, the citizens look at what a particular project is done to their property, and just their property. But we need like a 10,000-foot view of what it's going to do for their city. And I don't know how you get to that. I just don't. Any ideas?
Well, I think one of the things we try to do is, as Kiwanis mentioned a minute ago, is get a steering committee of some key folks that then could go out and talk to their networks about what's happening and bring that back to us at a minimum. That's one way to do it. Other places, we've done an online community survey, like you just alluded to, where people can just log on at home and fill out a few questions and let us know what they think the priorities are. We've done those before, but it's always a challenge until, like you said, it's something that's a threat or something that is impacting them. Another thing we've had luck with in recent years is with youth. We've tried to go through the school system and maybe get some of the youth involved, especially when you're doing a plan that's looking out 20 years. You think about, well, who's going to be, in their 20s in 20 years? It's, it's the kids that are in school. So we've had good luck of kids bringing stuff home and bringing it back, surveys and things like that. So just different methods, but it's some people want to look online, that's all they want to know, and give us some feedback, and other people love coming to meetings, and we can do it either way. Anything else?
You were right in that comment. We would love to finish up with a city that people, when they get out of school, they want to come back here. And I don't know that we're there right now.
Ann, do you have any questions? No? Okay, back to you, Melanie.
In one of the questions that we sent in, we were talking about the contemporary approach. You had made a comment, the contemporary approach may look good on paper, but in many cases do not meet the expectations. And you were going through and you were talking about, as far as form-based code or whatever, that it's a large, the responsibility falls mainly on the staff when that because they have review plans and they have things like that. So knowing who we have and our staff and how many people is manned, if a city adopted form-based code, how many people would it take to do a good job to implement that? And then when all these developers are coming, Because we got to consider that as well. If we're looking to go form-based code, we're also going to have to look at hiring more staff.
Right, and that really depends on the amount of applications that you have coming in and what the workload looks like. It's hard to even guess. But the key point we were just trying to make was it works really great in some places, and we're not saying it doesn't. It's a great idea. It's a great way to regulate land development. But the two things we've pointed out was, yes, the administrative burden is pretty heavy. You know, every single property, every single application has to be walked through that design process to make sure it fits. The second thing, which I think is even more important that people have found when they adopt a form-based code, is you kind of don't really worry too much about what the use of the property is. You worry about what it looks like. And I'm oversimplifying, but a lot of communities have said, oh, no, we still want to have some say in what the use is going to be. So what we've done is we've come up with many of the best components of form-based and put that in, and we call that a hybrid code. So it has components of both. Now, again, you may want to go full form-based, and that is fine. We're not saying that we specifically are avoiding the word negative. It could work, but our experience has been that for a community that's just trying to get their feet going and get an update like this going, that might be a little bit more than they need at that time. But
How many pure form-based code ordinances have y'all written, or have you, or been a part of?
I've never written a full form-based code. I've written codes that have had elements with the corridors and the overlays and the districts and things where they needed to be, and very creative stuff, mixed-use development and things like that. But we've never have been asked to do that.
And mostly where those pure form-based codes are happening, very early in my career, there's one in a very specific area of downtown Atlanta. Because the infrastructure and the investment's already there, they've got a very different situation than what you have here.
Correct.
And so it works in some places, it's just not the right solution for every locality.
Right. Are you more comfortable doing a hybrid type?
I firmly am in that camp. And the other thing that is just a reality of the whole development process is you do have to consider the economic realities of development. And you're going to have companies and developers come in. We had an experience in the Fayetteville area which adopted a form-based code, which then has kind of evolved it, is the way that they say it, but basically they've revised it, is because Piedmont Hospital will not even come into their community anymore because they can't meet the parking requirements. And so you have to be, when you do these, you have to be cognizant of the market realities of your community.
Okay. Anybody else?
I got a quick question.
Just
since you-
FYI, we're about halfway through the 20 minutes.
Okay, awesome. You brought it up, Glenn. You went to another community 2 years after y'all did a code update. Is that kind of the expected time? Because I know we've been advised before, if you're going to do something, leave it pat for a couple years before you change anything. Is that is like a 2 to 4, 3 year kind of
I think it
thing
was
before you
longer.
get another
you say it
update?
happened 2 years ago, but it was actually
Oh, no,
17 years.
yeah, a bunch of
so-
years, no, there's like 15 years in between. That's too long. I mean, in Georgia, the comprehensive planning requires you to update it every 5 years. That's really, now it's every 5 years, but every 10 is a major update. So it depends again on how fast you're growing and what challenges you're faced with. What I would think would happen is if we went through this process and you adopted a new code, say, a year from now, I would say, let's see how that's working. Right away, in the first 6 months, there's going to be what we call Scrivener's errors, or there's going to be just something that we didn't anticipate, a cross-reference is wrong, or something that we've all missed, the legal, that we'll have to clean up. So there'll be something, or something just isn't working right. But then I would say 2 years out, we should take a real look at it and say, how is this working? Is it what we wanted? And then I would think a full, sit down and let's do another rewrite in 5. And then I think you'll be able to then keep up with it, and then as things are needed, you can do it, as I said, as needed. But I think there'll be a little shakeout period at the beginning. Then I would say in a couple years down the road, how's this working? You're going to have maybe new council members to come on. They'll need to be, caught up, and new planning commission members and things like that. So, but no, I don't think you need to worry about a full rewrite if you dig in and do it now for at least another 5 years.
Okay, any other questions?
I do. How much experience do you have working with GDOT?
We do a lot of transportation planning. She does a lot, Kalanis does a lot. We've done some of the safety action planning. We've done comprehensive long-range transportation plans. We've worked with the MPOs, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organizations. We know about the rights-of-way. We know about the permitting process. I'm not really sure, but yes, we work with GDOT all the time.
Can do a quick little plug. We actually have a GDOT board member who works for Foresight. So we have a direct connection to GDOT.
We need a dozen of them.
Sir?
We need a dozen of them. Now, the reason I say that, you've already realized that we have, and we're fortunate in some ways, but it's also a curse. We have 3 state roads that run through our city. And the roads that we have, for the most part, are the same roads we had 25, 30 years ago. And the population is about triple since 2000. So we've got to do some things to move some more cars.
Yes, and when you start talking about regulations, you start talking about things like curb cuts, setbacks, shared driveways. Those are the things that we want to make sure we're in line with what DOT is talking about. Medians, I mean, there's all kinds of things on some of these main roads that we may want to propose in the code, and then it doesn't fly with GDOT. So we want to make sure that those are all consistent.
I know curb cuts is one of those.
Oh, yeah.
They don't like curb cuts.
No. And
They want right in, right out.
They don't like unprotected left
Roundabouts.
turns either.
That's exactly right.
So they'd rather send you to the intersection to U-turn back. So, yeah.
And I get that. What they want is safe roads. And turning left on a busy road is difficult. And we have 3 or 4 places in town it's more than difficult.
Can I ask,
Thank you.
you done?
Yes, sir.
Y'all, okay.
Go ahead, Melanie.
Okay, now I forgot. Oh, never mind, now it flew right out of my head. It probably will. Hang on a second. You were talking about GDOT. I gotta remember what I was thinking about. I mean, I'll just ask this while I'm trying to think what I was doing. So, for someone that has, none of us have done this. And now I remember my question. Hang on a second. But none of us have done this, and so we have a very large task ahead of us, and we do want the public to be heavily involved in this. So first of all, do you have any words of advice? So no matter who we hire, do you have some words of advice for us to make sure we do this right? Because we get one shot at this, and this is a lot of money to spend to do it one shot. But also, I noticed in here that a lot of your meetings, it's your meeting with staff and your meeting with this and that. Is there an opportunity, if any of this council up here chose to sit in on those meetings, are we welcome to do so, or do you want to stay specifically meeting with staff and things like that?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. So, as we mentioned before, steering committee is a really good way to do that. You can put yourself on the steering committee. In fact, that's probably a good idea, is to have some representation. That group would meet, I forget how many times we put in this schedule, but regularly. We also love to do stakeholder interviews, somebody who might be a really key person in the community that doesn't have time to come to a lot of meetings, but we need to talk to them, maybe a real estate person or a developer or the superintendent of school, somebody that we can sit down and talk to for an hour and really get a lot of information from. As far as advice, when we've done these before, there's going to be a list of issues that we're going to get from staff. Some of them are burning, we need to take care of them right now. Other ones are, if it was nice, these would be nice to do if we could get to it, and then a bunch in the middle. And so what we need to do first is divide up your issues into what we can manage quickly, what's going to take a little bit more analysis, and which things we just really might need to put off until we have some more conversations. You look at the whole thing, it's so much, right? And so let me give you an example, the use table. You're going to have a use table that's probably very old. You've got some uses in there that we don't have anymore. You've got uses that aren't in there that we need to have because they're new. That we can go through fairly, not quickly, but we can get through that, I think, and say, this is what you have, and this is what we recommend, and we can make a decision and move on. Now, when we get to some other things like different creative housing types or a zoning district that might allow smaller homes or more density, that's going to be a conversation for the community, whether it's the public or planning commission or you. as a body, those are going to take a little bit more thought. And so we'll divide that up. So we won't try to do all the easy things and then it'll be a process that we'll go through. So we will have a very clear roadmap as to how we're going to divide that up and which sections we're going to take on. in
Would
what
that be
order.
something that you would have before the very first meeting, or would that come?
Maybe not
a
the
few
first
months
meeting, but
in?
very close to the beginning. We
Okay.
want to know what your roadmap is, what your
Okay.
expectations are. And that way, the other advantage of that is you can see the progress being made. We have benchmarks that we're hitting. Instead of waiting till the end and dropping, 130 pages on everybody to review is not the way to do it. So that's one advice. The other advice I would give, but we've kind of talked about a little bit, is the comp plan. There's different opinions about the current comp plan, but normally we would say your zoning ordinance should reflect your comp plan if everybody's on board with that. If it's not, we've been chatting as a group, you might need to spend a little more time thinking about what some of the visions are for the plan and how we reflect that in the code. And so here, I think normally I would say, what does your plan say? Let's implement it. Here we might say, well, what does your plan say? Do we need to think about a little more and then put in aspects of the code? So that's something we need to flesh out at the beginning.
Got just under 3 minutes left.
Okay, to a degree, inside the city of Loganville, we're almost out of space. And now we find the developers are coming in with their projects, and in some cases trying to put a round peg in a square hole. How do you address that?
Well, I think, not that I don't want to answer, I just want to let somebody else talk. One of the things I enjoyed about being a planning director and working is people would come in, they'd have an issue like that, and I've saw it as my job is to try to figure out a way to make it happen. Not necessarily where and how they want to make it happen, but here's what our code says, here's where you are, how do we get closer to the middle? We may narrow it down to a point where you might need a small variance to make that work, or we might need an amendment to the code to make that work. But each and every one is so different. But I think the idea is if you have some examples of those up front that we could use as a jumping off point, we can write some language to address that. Where I thought you were going was with annexation, and you're limited with the city limits you have now, and then what happens with annexation and zoning, and that's an issue too. But infill or redevelopment is something we're going to have to take a very careful look at in a city that's as established as this one is, and that we might need to get creative with some of the things that we recommend in the code.
And think about what is best for the city as a whole, so that you balance the property owner's needs with the city's needs, and make sure that you're not creating a long-term problem for the city. I think that's something that gets lost a lot, is that people, when they're doing a development, they're not thinking 20 years down the road, and how much, particularly traffic, if you've only got, and you don't even have control of those state routes, how do you address that through your code? And what are some options that you can build in, that then you share that responsibility with the development when it comes in, so that they are providing a benefit to the community.
Got just under a minute.
That's good.
All right, any other questions? Okay, and everyone's got their contact information, so, feel free to reach out after the meeting if you still have questions. Thank you very much
very much. It's
for
a
being
pleasure
here
meeting you
tonight.
all. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
By the way, I was going to mention, we're fairly well versed on annexations. We've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, next up, we'll
Thank
invite,
y'all.
and help me say this right, is it TPU DC?
Got it.
Did I spell that right?
Perfect. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for having us. So my name is Brian Wright. I'm the principal of Planning and Urban Design Collaborative. We've got a PowerPoint here. Your computer did some weird things with the fonts, but he was nice enough to let me sit there for a minute and try to fix the ones I could. So any strange capitalization or things like that looks awesome on my computer, not so much on yours. So. All right, so we've got an introduction here as well in this. So as I said, I'm Brian, I'm the principal. Also have with me Bill Wright, same last name because he's my dad. So we get the joy of working together all over the country, doing zoning ordinances and all sorts of things as well. Team of people also supporting us. She couldn't be here tonight with us. Anna from our team is project manager. She'll be representing your project. She's watching on YouTube or whatever wherever right now, so she's been texting me. So that's great, and many others that make it all happen. So fortunately for us, we get to work all over the country. We're from Franklin, Tennessee, not too far away. We were able to drive over here today. But we get to work in places that are similar. We get to work in places that are different. So we're able to see kind of what works well, what are challenges in other communities, and we can bring those to the places we're working. But most importantly, we want to make sure that what we're doing isn't just bringing in some alien thing and plopping it down and saying, oh, you should be like this other city. You need to be like you and where y'all want to go. So it helps us getting to work all over the place. Our approach to zoning, and I don't normally talk this fast, by the way. I'm from the South, but we only have a little bit of time, so I'm going to go fast because I have a lot of slides. So our approach to zoning is to protect the most beloved areas of the city, to maintain stable neighborhoods, to enhance areas that need improvement, to transform underutilized properties, as well as infilling gaps in the community, creating more predictable outcomes for the developers, for the community, for the elected officials and everybody at the table. So development's not so scary every time something comes through the process. We also see zoning as an economic development tool. So if you play your cards right and you're thinking ahead, you can make your community more desirable through zoning rather than just sort of protecting against the bad stuff. And you also need to clean up existing issues. You know, we've been studying your existing ordinance, and there's some things that could be tweaked, some little fix up here and there. But in the end, it needs to be user-friendly and easy to administer. Whatever approach you take, those are the things that will make it where it has a lasting impact on the community. So for us, we partner with the staff first and foremost. So unlike this little girl, we know how to play well with others, because when we start a project like this, it's a long engagement, and we want to make sure that it's a great relationship. The image on the other side of the screen is actually a spontaneous photograph taken during one of our meetings with staff, and you see we're all smiling and just having a great time, because we want to make it where you guys are looking forward to actually having to meet and talk to us. So the other thing we do is bring our national experience and our regional experience, because we've been able to, fortunate enough to work just down the road over in Monroe and other places as well. But for us, the citizens are the experts. All of you are the experts, and bringing them as a part of the team throughout this process is fundamental, because we're not from here. We don't know this place like you guys ever do. We never can. So that's an important part of our process as well. We also need to keep things moving. There's a lot to do in a zoning ordinance, so a project management plan, Anna would be the creator of that and the keeper of that, keeps us on task, on schedule, and on budget. We start by building on the past work. You guys have a fairly recent comp plan. You have your downtown master plan as well as your zoning ordinance, and so we've been studying all those documents. And so we try to jump off from what you've done before, really thinking about, okay, well, what do you want to bring forward? What are the things that need to be sort of rethought as we go through our process that's quite robust? We also look to have interdepartmental collaboration. So, typically the zoning planning department is sort of who we are interfacing with most often, but there are other departments at the city that have some stake in what happens in the zoning ordinance, and so we bring everybody together around the table at the very beginning, and sometimes that's actually the first time the departments have all sat down together, so we have to kind of do a little Dr. Phil thing sometimes, but I'm sure that's not the case here. I'm sure everybody gets along all the time. Outreach and engagement, when we're bringing the public in, and as part of the team, if you will, this section of our presentation is one of the most important. So, about 75% of adults will never attend a public meeting. They're distracted. They've got life going on. They're doing all sorts of things. So what we try to do is keep this from happening. This is not one of our meetings on the screen there. This is one of our meetings, and the thing that I love about this is not only do they have out their cameras taking pictures, because people do that a lot in public meetings these days, but often when they do it, they're scowling. But if you look at this, some of these people are actually excited by what they're photographing. Communication is key, so we've developed over the past 20 years since I started the firm tools to teach, tools to inform, tools to collaborate, tools to get feedback, and most importantly, get buy-in from the community, because that's going to be important ultimately for the success of this to move forward. Modern strategies are a part of it. We'll make a web page where people can go on, not just to get information, but to actually give information as well. So if they're not able to attend something in person, they can go online and provide input there. Old school print can work well too. We have a graphic designer on staff, and we make these wonderful posters and postcards and mailers and all of these things that you guys can get out to everybody so that the word is spread widely. We like to deputize leaders in the community, people who already are trusted and people they have people's ear. And so we say, hey, can you help us spread the word about this? Sometimes we have regular old meetings where I stand up in front of the room and talk about things like we're doing right now. But ultimately, it's really about meeting people where they are. So these are several things, potlucks and picnics. That's me in civilian clothing manning a booth at the farmer's market. We did the comprehensive plan in Snowmass, Colorado, and we caught people on the way to the ski slopes. And then sometimes we like to plug into events that are already happening, like Live After 5 in Pinehurst. So we try to create a forum for open dialogue, many different opportunities. We have our trademarked Code-a-Palooza and Plan-a-Palooza process. So we really like to make it more of an event. It's a multi-day event that happens. People can come at different times for different things according to their schedule, according to what's scheduled. So they can drop in at their convenience. So open studio hours, we literally come and set up our office in the town for multiple days on end. And we pride ourselves, and we're one of the top firms for outreach in the country. This is, the image you see before you is in a community where they're known for making posters. Normally they say, I can't believe we voted for you, get out of town. And in this case, they said, we love Plan-a-Palooza. And so everybody was quite excited about that. So part of the way that we get people on board is, when we're talking about zoning in particular, it's like, it's pretty dry, right? It's one of the sort of the least sexy things about planning, but it's really important because it's the rules, it's the regulations about what you can and can't do with your property. So we like to show people what we're talking about. So we discuss zoning through planning and visioning as part of that. So example here is a downtown infill where they were saying, what can we do with some of these parking lots in our downtown? So we showed them in plan view, and then we said, okay, and here's kind of what it looks like. And then based on what you said, here's what you could do in that parking lot area. And they said, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Or, oh, that's a bit too urban for us, scale it down. Here's a corridor retrofit where they had a sort of suburban corridor before and after. Looking at a neighborhood center, they want to create a new neighborhood center before and after. Adaptive reuse. This is an old dog food factory in Spartanburg, and showed how they could convert that and accomplish a lot of their new housing goals they had, some incubator retail spaces, et cetera. Downtown cottage court. I know you guys had a question about some cottages. This was something we've been working on recently. And we showed how they could infill this empty lot with some cottages, and then here's what it looks like, and that's what it could be like. And so they said, oh, well, that makes sense. That fits the character, that fits the space. Let's do that. And then a similar concept, different community. This was an affordable housing project in a low-income neighborhood that we worked on. We did a master plan for the whole neighborhood, and specifically this infill plan for this cottage court that addressed the needs of the community based on what we heard from them. Missing middle housing is something that comes up all over the country, where we have lots of experience with that, and pocket neighborhoods as well. So having a wide range of housing types is a way to help to accomplish your housing issue goals. We work on all types of zoning codes. We are one of the few firms in the country that has done multiple citywide form-based codes. It's quite rare. It's, usually the planning director is gung-ho, form-based code or character-based code, and we can do it, but it doesn't happen often. Nearly always, we're doing a hybrid code. What hybrid means has to be calibrated with the community, though. So we say, here's what hybrid typically means. What are you trying to accomplish? And so they're like, well, we have these areas that are suburban. We have these areas that are somewhat maybe urban or historic core or whatever. Where can we take a sort of a normal suburban approach with a Euclidean-based zoning, which is what you have now and cleaned up, and then where can you do a form-based approach in sort of key areas? So here we've done that conventional and character-based. We've done a hybrid that had character-based additions to a conventional zoning code in Monroe, and that was a plug-in. We did a hybrid in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, similarly, and here's some of the examples from that. So before and after. This is a new building built under their form-based code. And again, obviously, that may not be architecturally appropriate here or scale-wise appropriate. You sort of tailor it to what you want in the community. But the results...
About 1 minute.
No way. Oh, my gosh. Whoa. Okay. Other places have done form-based codes. Is this 1 minute in my 5 minutes or 1 minute in my 20? Okay,
This
good.
is on your 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Scared me to death. Okay, all right. There was a question you guys asked about other places in Georgia that have done form-based codes in the past 10 or 12 years. Here are a few: Alpharetta, Woodstock, and Chattahoochee Hills. Very different in their context and character. Obviously, Chattahoochee Hills is leaning more towards the rural villages and hamlets, whereas in Alpharetta, they're looking to make a proper city center. So what is hybrid zoning? As I said, it's you know, kind of what it is to you. What do you need it to be to meet your needs? So use standards, of course, and even in a form-based approach, the use goes from the first most important thing, the way I say it, it's like the fifth most important thing. But the uses are still there. Typically, you'll have conventional residential standards that are more suburban in character. And then you have character-based areas that might be more of the historic districts or other places like that. Or places you want to transform. And then sometimes we have standards for places like, this is an example, we were doing this, it was a big box area on a highway, and they wanted to make it more of sort of a walkable Main Street meets big box, because that would work for them economically, and then add some sort of extra, you know, pizzazz to what they were offering in the market. And so we had to create this whole new zoning strategy that allowed for both of those things to happen on the same parcel. So it's a hybrid on a per lot basis. So for us to draft the new zoning ordinance, we start off by looking at your existing ordinance, kind of going through a little forensics, making sure, you know, kind of what it does well, what it's not doing well. And 5 minutes is up. Now we're into 20. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're leaning in.
All right, so we're done with the intro, and now we're into 20 minutes of Q&A with the council.
Perfect. So can I finish this, and then we'll
Sure,
just
yes.
jump in if y'all got a question while I'm going. How about that? So the synoptic surveys are the way that we get out in the community. We understand what is the DNA of the community. We don't want to, like I said, we don't want to write an alien code and bring it in. We go and we say, okay, well, what are the places you love the most? What are the places that you don't love the most? And what needs to be fixed? What needs to be kept? And we go out and measure and document all of that so we can understand, like, okay, this is Loganville. In some ways, this is our opportunity to learn the community better than even the locals sometimes. So, and then we go through and look at doing a translation. So if there are areas that you're looking at to do form-based or character-based, but you have conventional zoning districts now, we say, okay, well, what are those districts, and what's sort of a corollary in a form-based or character-based approach, and how do we simplify? A lot of zoning codes have way more zoning districts than they need, and so you're able to consolidate some of them that have sort of been built up over the years. So we also have to sync up with the comp plan, and then, you know, creating the new zoning districts. And so we work together with the community, with all of you, to figure out what are the zoning districts that you want. We look at lot layout and building placement. We look at building types, and this example is a good one. So you've got some that are very traditional in the way they look, and then you've got big box buildings as well, and they all have a character to them. So signage standards, of course, you know, sometimes we have to add signage standards because a lot of signage standards are more geared towards the suburban model, and they're not good ones for the downtown. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, let's open up to the council, mayor and council for questions. Brandon, do you have any questions?
I'll ask the same one I asked the last time. I'll just reword it a little bit. What do you expect after we go through this process to keep updated, like timeline and what to expect?
As far as the timeline for the project, you mean?
Like once it gets done, you just expect like maybe every 2 or 4 years we relook at it?
Oh, I see. Yeah. So what we like to do is, you know, write it so that it's sound, and then it lasts for a long time. So typically there's sort of a code cleanup or so we call, you know, sort of after a year or so. Once it's been used a little bit, you go, okay, here's some of the issues we run into. Let's get that fixed up. But we like to write these things so that they endure, because when you're looking at it from, you know, sort of addressing all of the issues in a holistic way, be it the sort of suburban areas or the areas that you want to be more form-based or character-based, if you have any of those, then it can withstand, you know, over time. So do you want to come up here also? I guess we got some questions that are relevant to you. I'll keep flipping through these slides as we talk. Go ahead.
All right, Melanie?
I'll just ask some of the same questions I asked the other group. So, you know, if you go with a form-based code, obviously it said it's very staff, it's a lot of work for the staff because of the reviewing plans and keeping up with everything. Are you familiar with our staff here at Loganville? I mean, you've been
Yes.
working with them. So do you feel like that we would have the appropriate staff, or because that's also, like I said, would have to look at whichever way we go, might have to look at, we're hiring more folks, and that's
Sure.
more money, so.
Yes, I'm not sure where you got the idea that you have to have more staff to administer it, because, you know, typically what we do is we also calibrate the approval process to the community, to what, I mean, some places we work don't even have planning staff, and so what's that process look like? Ultimately, because the document is more user-friendly, because the specific requirements are clearly stated in the document, the idea is that you can, I mean, literally, Montgomery, Alabama did a form-based code early on, and what was their turnaround time?
They said they could review an application in 1 hour.
Can you,
I'm sorry. They said they could review an application in 1 hour on
Really?
a significant project. So it becomes, you know exactly what it needs to be in the document, and it's just a matter of just checking off against it. And there's no sort of trying to figure out whether something complements this. And it's, all those subjective kind of words don't really fit with form-based code so much. And you have objective standards that are actually easier to apply. It may be, like when you first start out, if somebody's not ever thought about a form-based code, then there may be a little learning curve. But once you've learned it, it's actually simpler to deal with, in my thought.
As an example, we actually were hired to write the code in the city of Franklin, where we live, and then they had us come back and write the historic district guidelines. But look, if you look at your screen here, so this is kind of how the code of Franklin was set up. All that just, it's crazy. And then this is how it ends up, so we simplify it. This is all hyperlinked. It's easier to use. It's easier to administer. And so you end up not necessarily having to have a bunch of extra staff for it.
You can't
A
hear.
couple of questions, if I might.
Can you guys,
Sorry.
just, that's
Yes, ma'am.
okay, just the mic.
There you go.
Thank you.
Lean in.
We're out of time.
No, she said just lean closer to the mic.
Yeah.
What would you tell Loganville residents, and we have quite a few, who say they want to keep the small town feel?
Yeah.
We hear it quite often. I'm sure you do too.
Yes, sir.
And then the second part of that, do property owners have rights?
Absolutely. Yeah, so two things. We are fortunate enough to get to work in a lot of small towns. And in a small town, you hear people talk about that charm, right? People don't talk about big city charm very much, right? And so we have to figure out what it is. What is that small town character, that charm that people are talking about? And so through our visioning process, we actually determine what that is. Because to some people, that every person in this room would have a different idea in your head of like, what is my Loganville? And so we have to determine that, and then we have to codify it. Now, when it comes to the property owner's rights, absolutely. So one of the reasons why people oftentimes will actually maybe start off with a sort of, let's just do form-based over here, and then they say, well, actually, now that I've learned more about it, I see that it can expand the rights of the property owner, and so maybe we could do it in a larger area than we thought, because since use goes from the first most important thing to like the fifth or sixth, then it doesn't matter as much what goes next to each other because it's all compatible. If you think about a historic downtown, the uses that happen in these buildings over 100 years, they change. There's a livery stable one day, the next year it's a general store, next year it's somebody living in there. Didn't matter, they all work together.
We're still living under a developer from about 5 to 8 years ago who came through, and all the conversations were, I love the small town feel.
Right.
I love the small town feel. Well, I read his plan for the first time in a newspaper,
Right.
and he wanted to have 800 apartments here,
Oh.
and all hell broke loose.
Was that 800 apartments on like 3,000 acres?
No, sir.
How do you get small town charm with that many apartments, right?
A lot of it was on this property here.
I see. Yeah.
So we just need to make sure that we're just not getting lip service.
Absolutely.
And when we get down to the end of the day, that's really what we're trying to create.
Yeah. And it's up to you guys, as you go through this process into the community, once we determine with y'all like what it is you want. But here's the hard part. Sticking to your guns, right? Because a developer comes in and they go like, oh, I want to do this on here. And you go, we just did this new zoning ordinance and it doesn't really allow that anymore. And they go, but I really want to do it. And it's going to really make a whole lot of money for the city and all that stuff. And you go, ooh, did we really? Oh, yeah. And so ultimately what I find is that when you're going through the process and everybody's like, yes, small town charm, and we write it, and then you go, whoa, okay, that's what it takes to get small town charm. I did, okay. And then we have to go through that together. And sometimes you dial it back, and but ultimately you've got to start with the vision in mind, with the end in mind, or you'll never hit it for sure.
well, one of the questions, and I was the one that asked it, because I noticed that you're very heavy. You seem to favor form-based code or character-based code, as you call it, and a lot of your workers are from the I want to make sure I use the right terminology. The
CNU.
Congress for the New Urbanism.
That's right.
And so it seems like your presentation, like that seems to be where your bread and butter is, what you really love to do. So my question was, would you be able to work with a city that maybe wants to stay Euclidean or have a hybrid, but you're going to be able to do that without prejudice? You're not going to be trying to influence us into your way of thinking, because that is what you love to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so the last slide's here. A new zoning ordinance that's right for Loganville, right? So it's got to be right for the businesses, it's got to be right for the policymakers, it's got to be right for the citizens, it's got to be right for people of all stages of life, it's got to be right for visitors, it's got to be right for the development community, but most importantly, it has to have it is your code, and we know how to do something that is unique in the country, and people ask us to do it. Because that is the way that communities have realized, like, oh, well, the old way of doing things has given us things we're trying to fix. You know, when you say, well, what development in the past 10 years are you most proud of in your city? Most places we go around the country, they go, I don't know. You know, it's like, where do you take your friends when they come in from out of town to visit? What do you show them that's, you know, maybe besides the historic stuff? Well, we have these parks we really like. And say, how about something that's been built? And say, no. And I say, there's a problem with your zoning code. If it's not giving you things that you're, you know, proud of, it's not giving you things that are, you know, adding to the character of the community, there's things to fix. However, like I said, it's very rare to have a pure form-based or character-based zoning ordinance. Nearly every single one we write is always a hybrid, which means that we have to deal with Euclidean stuff all the time, even if we're members of the Congress for New Urbanism.
Well, I think all of us know.
We're about halfway through.
I think all of us know that there are new ideas coming out, and we don't know them, honestly. We here in Loganville, and we don't go all over the place, so hopefully we can cover some of those new issues with the residents, and they can embrace them if it fits what they want. One of the things that amazes me, we have a town that has 3 national supermarkets. Great.
3 national?
3. We have Publix, we have Kroger, and we have Ingles. Ingles is sort of southwest, but they get in there. There's nothing that creates more traffic than a grocery store. They shift groups every hour. So we want the conveniences, and we want to be able to get there in 5 minutes, but we don't want any traffic.
Right.
That's tough.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'll give you an example of one of the reasons why people are really focusing on form-based and character-based as opposed to the Euclidean zoning, because the reason why you have traffic is development that happened after World War II up until about now. Because what happens is most zoning ordinances separate uses, they don't let you connect roads. Neighborhoods are sold as not being connected to the people who have a house that costs something different than your house, and oh, we're protected from that, and that's going to protect our property values. Well, what happens is then at every single trip you take every single day, you have to get in your car, you have to then get on the highway, you have to then, you know, everybody's like, oh, I hate traffic, and I always say, you know what's so funny about traffic is the person sitting in the car right next to you is saying the same thing about you. You are your neighbor's traffic, right? And so even if your house is within walking distance of a store that you needed to go to, most places don't have a street that's safe enough for you to feel comfortable walking on, and so you have to then get in your car and drive a ridiculous, like we could have walked over here from Caribou Coffee, right?
Yeah.
Probably not didn't, you know, so.
So design has a lot to do, and, so the design and how we do our code is how you get to address fixing some of the traffic issues we have.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive. Through development, you can actually start to help with some of your traffic problems because new development can have those additional road connections that are missing right now. Because even in some suburban settings, they had forethought and they like made the parking lots connect to one another. And you're like, oh, that's way easier. I can just go between, you know, Chick-fil-A and Target and whatever, and I don't have to get on the highway. And you think about it, you're like, that just kept me off of the highway. And people who need to go from here to there can keep on going, so.
But those property owners have to agree to that.
They do unless
It's
the
their property.
zoning ordinance says that that's the desired outcome.
It can be required in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, yeah, you don't have to go back and make them connect it, like, that's a different thing. But new development, you go like, oh, the new development needs to connect, because we know that that's gonna help with our traffic problem.
True. Good point.
One of the things you were just saying a few minutes ago was how the zoning could help fill in other things that the city maybe or the community may be missing. Just can you expand on that? What's an example of that? I'm just having a hard time figuring out how the zoning moves you that way.
Yes.
Like any,
So a lot of times what we see is in a place like this, it's sort of kind of built out already, and especially you have the predominance of your development pattern is sort of that more suburban model. We see tons of suburban infills along, strip and corridors and things like that sort of dated, outdated ones. If you look at some of the communities around here, when they made whole new downtowns, and it's like, well, what was that? It was something else at some point, and so they transformed and changed that. You guys have the little cottage area there in your downtown plan that y'all are talking about. So that'd be an example of, like you have the cottages. So what we need to figure out and how to calibrate in the code is what do the lot widths need to be there, right? Because those cottages that are shown in the plan right now are about half as big as the houses that are across the street. That's okay, it's not a problem. But from a character perspective, it may change the character. If that's an important street or you wanted to preserve that character, you may go, oh, well, actually, let's change that a little bit. Maybe actually it would be better if they were a duplex, because then you get a little bit more density, but you also then are now sort of in keeping with the scale of the house across the street. However, when I say duplex, you probably immediately think of a duplex you've seen in a suburban setting with a parking lot around it. When I'm talking about a duplex, I'm talking about ones you have seen in the historic district where you didn't even realize it was a duplex. So all those things we could talk about for hours.
And when you're saying, or did you have a question? I didn't want to cut you
go
off.
ahead.
So when you're saying all this, we're talking about writing the ordinance. The land is still out here zoned the way it's zoned. But what you're going to do is create different zoning.
Districts.
Yes.
Yes.
So like you would probably keep the downtown overlay district or something similar to that there would be rules for that area. But then the rest of the city, like if we have R16 and R22, you may create some new zoning.
Yes.
Things.
Yes. So a lot of times what we find is in those sort of standard suburban neighborhood areas, no one's looking for change to happen, and they're like, leave us alone. And if you start talking about something, even maybe even a name change, people freak out, right? And so sometimes you just leave it alone. And that's why some places will do a plug-in like we talked about for form-based. You clean up the regular zoning districts that you have in those areas that you don't want to do anything with, and then other areas where you are okay with transformation or doing something different, then you do a new zoning district. Overlay on downtown, for instance, a lot of times we say, well, go to a place and they'll have a bunch of overlays, and you go, well, like, oh, well, this is very confusing. And like, when I use this, and then sometimes I use that, and there's 3 overlays that overlap, and it was like that in Monroe. And so, and the idea would be to maybe the downtown zoning district just is a new form-based district that incorporates the things that the overlay was trying to do, because an overlay is really a Band-Aid or patch to sort of conventional zoning, and you need the character to be maintained in the historic district. So you said, oh, let's make an overlay in order to solve that problem, and so we can do a district that covers
Right,
that.
because I believe for too long that everybody on this council, previous council before that, everybody, they've only focused on the 6 blocks of Main Street. There's a whole other city out here. We're 6 square miles.
That's right.
So what you're talking about doing in rewriting this is one of the things we're looking at doing. We have developers come in here. We don't really have a zoning that gives them the product that they want to do, so we're trying to squeeze and twist and do it. So we're just going to basically would be giving developers more options. So they look at our book and they go, I don't have a product that fits in there. Maybe I don't go there to build my product. But then somebody else goes, oh, wow, I didn't know I could build that there. So it's just basically to give developers a wider range of products.
But at the same
Close to the
time,
mic here.
I'm sorry. At the same time, you don't want to take the approach of making sure you have every developer come in and do only what they want to do.
Correct.
So you're not, if they're building product that you don't want, it's okay to let them go.
Correct.
So,
And that's what a lot of this brings into a good question. So how deep will this rewrite get into architectural standards?
It depends. It depends on what's appropriate here, what you guys can sometimes sort of be okay with, and sometimes administer, to your earlier point. And we've worked in places that are very, very advanced and have a huge planning staff and all that, even have architects on staff in their different departments, and well, we want to have very strict and rigorous architectural standards, and we're like, okay, we write them, and they go, okay, well, maybe not that much. And so then we start taking stuff out, and then because the developer's like, whoa, 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 hold on, now I'm gonna have to make a whole new, kind of line of houses or whatever. In some cities, they go, we know. That's why we wrote the zoning ordinance like this,
Right.
because we're kind of over what you've been giving us, like you've been giving every single town all the way around us. You've been creeping out from, from the city. Other places, they go, you know what, we really need the growth. It's important to our tax base, our revenue, new houses, or, however y'all are set up here. And so we need to be a little bit more lenient in certain areas. There are other areas that are important, and you're gonna need to, work on really maintaining, or you say, like, in this area, it's very, you can do conventional stuff. Over here, we want stuff that is like the historic district stuff, that's gonna be really, really, wonderful and new and different. And so maybe there's something for everyone, even the developers.
Right, because one of my slogans I like to use, I think you should build for what you want to attract. I think that's very important. And so I would look at this rezone rewrite as an opportunity. So I'm with you. We don't want every developer to come in here. We want the ones that are going to bring a quality product that'll enhance our city, that will be something that even the people that live here, even though they don't want more people, they can go, yeah, but that's pretty awesome. I like that. So I want to take that approach, that you build for what you want to put. And that's why I say I would want to be also able to look at finishes, and architectural standards are very important.
I want to just make one quick
Just under
point.
2 minutes.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Quick point is, a lot of the questions that we've heard they ask what we're going to do. I think it's really important for everybody to understand that the word collaborative in the name of our firm is that we collaborate with our clients. And what Loganville needs and should get is what Loganville wants. And we can help y'all figure out what that is. But there is a lot that's going to go into, on the front end, figuring out what it is that the city wants. So
The other thing, to your point about attracting the type of development you want, and some people not being excited about development, a lot of places we worked are like, we're growing, we're out of control growth, all this stuff, we got to put on the brakes, we got to do all this. We say, well, one way, it's like a good happy medium, is to increase your standards so that you're not as attractive to every single national builder and whatever. And those who do kind of pass through the gauntlet, you get that end result where you're like, yeah, this is have you seen what's going on in Loganville? What did they do? They got that new zoning ordinance, didn't they? Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to both companies for being here tonight and your
Appreciate you being with us.
presentations.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, so what happens next on this is I'd like to hear more feedback. We'll continue our discussions, Mayor, no, not tonight, over the next few weeks, and then be prepared at the October council meeting. Based on feedback, I'll make a motion on which company is decided upon. So we'll make that decision at the October council meeting.
Okay. You
Okay,
want that at
thank
the
you.
work session?
Sir?
You want that at the work session or the?
The motion and the vote will be on the Thursday night, unless there's some reason we need to have it at the work session.
Well, we may need some discussion, maybe some disagreements about which one we would want to use. That's all I'm thinking.
Okay.
Who knows?
And for that is all we have tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move next to Human Resources and Finance, a resolution of censure. And if I could put Paul Rosenthal on the spot. For the folks here, Paul, would you explain in a brief way what this is?
Can you clarify that question just a little bit better, Mayor? And I'll be
Please.
happy to answer for you.
Well, for example, we have not had anything like this in years. What has caused us to need to go this route, and why?
So last year, I'll see if I can give you a little bit of history and then give you just a little bit of definition of what a censure is. It's a very particular term that stems back long before me and is in Robert's Rules of Order. But last year, council tasked me with the effort of passing some basic policies and procedures protocols. You'll recall that before my time, y'all passed an ethics ordinance and that came up frequently, this is an ethics violation, this is an ethics violation. Your ethics ordinance that you passed in your code of ordinances essentially deals with what I call self-dealing within government. That's a very oversimplification, but it is a focus on one should not sit in a position of leadership in a community, in your city, and then have any sort of self-dealing, prohibition on contracts, prohibition on using information for one's personal gain, those sort of things. And the issue came up with sort of how does council interact with staff? How does council address group correspondence? How does council interact with the city manager versus staff? Lots of different sort of details that you're like, we want a little bit more guidance on those issues. How do we address confidential information, which this motion for censure addresses? And so as a result of that, we drafted some very basic policies and procedures and protocols. Any corporate body has an inherent authority and ability to govern its own conduct, or to self-police is the terminology that you'll hear used. And so, and your charter, of course, envisions that y'all run the city, y'all are the legislative arm of the city, and that your own body, the elected officials of you, the 6+1, are vested with your own authority to govern your own conduct, or self-police. So we prepared your policies and procedures protocol last year. Y'all passed it in June of last year, and it included a violations provision which says that any council member found to violate any provision of this policy may be subject to public reprimand and censure by a majority vote of the mayor and council. Your ethics ordinance has the exact same language in there, except on more serious charges, where basically that violations could result in a censure. A censure is essentially a public reprimand, or going back to my days of school, a public demerit, being declared that you've done something that you shouldn't have done. In Congress, it is a motion for a commendment or a motion for censure. So there's either a motion for you did something great, or there's a motion for censure, you did something that you shouldn't have done. So that's what the concept of a censure is. And it stems from your ordinance, your policy that you passed last year in June, that provides guidance on how this council is to interact with staff, interact with the public, and to handle certain information that it receives in the course of its governing the city of Loganville. I hope I did a good enough job on answering that question.
No, you did fine.
Because you did put me on the spot with that. But I'll be happy to dig into it further if you need me to.
Well, for the audience, could you also explain what is executive session?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So under Georgia law, as in most states, you have two things. You have open records generally. Some people call them Freedom of Information Act, which is the federal version. In Georgia, it's the Open Records Act. You also have what are called Sunshine Laws, which is the Open Meetings Act in Georgia. Essentially, the concept is that government should be open and transparent to the public, and that any and all meetings where action is taken, they should be open to the public. They should be advertised and available for the public to attend. However, recognizing the realities of not only attorney-client privilege, but also other sensitive information situations, there are exceptions to the Open Meeting Act where this council, along with any other governing body, can go into executive session for very specific exemptions. Exemptions of real estate, exemptions of personnel, and exemptions of attorney-client privilege and litigation. And there are a few other very rare ones, but normally it is for acquiring real estate or selling real estate, for personnel issues that fit within the exemption, and then for potential or threatened litigation issues, or for the receiving of confidential attorney-client privilege information. So if this council goes into executive session, it is for one of those three purposes generally. There might be a few other exceptions, but those are the three primary that you'll see 90+% of the time.
And if a decision is made in executive session, and many times it's not, we're also obligated to come out to the people who are still here and share with them what decisions were made. I mean, it may stay on the table for a while, though.
That is correct. Is if you're taking official action out of that executive session, generally that action must then be taken again in open session. It cannot remain in executive session.
Okay.
Discussions are for the purposes of executive session, not the actual action taken.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes, sir.
So now we'll turn it over to the Finance Human Resource Committee Chairwoman, Ann Hunsinger.
Mr. Mayor, you opened it, so do you want to read it? How do you want to proceed?
Go ahead and read it.
Council, we have in front of you a resolution for censure. I think everybody's seen it in their email. Is there anyone that has any discussions or any comments that want to be made here from the die?
Sure, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Bill.
Sure, so just a further explanation too. I mean, we're coming up on election. Every one of us that's been elected and who will be, Georgia law tells us that we're gonna go to a new elected officials training. That's the first thing you do. And you learn about these things. You learn about the sunshine laws and executive session and what it covers and what you're not supposed to do. You know, since taking office, we've all been in it. If you've been here, you see us. We vote to go into executive session. We go into it. We sign a form acknowledging that we're in there. When we conclude the meeting, we vote to come back, and just as the mayor says, we say if there's action taking place or not. So we all know the procedures and protocols with that. It's important for us when we do this that it just like the Paul said, if there's a real estate involved, there's potential gain for the city or loss in some respects, but also in the case that we're talking about today is after the meeting there was a post by Ms. Wolf on social media, and to me, from my opinion, from what I saw on it, it was directly related to the what we talked about in council. I'll say that from what I read, in my opinion, it was not exactly correct as far as the actual action, and then it caused harm. It caused harm. It caused harm to the Walton County Tax Assessors Board, Walton County, the city, our city partners, and that's why it's dear to me, and that's why that's one reason why I'm sitting here today.
Well, as I've said in all of our emails going back and forth for the last 2 days, and I'm not here to discuss what Patty may have done or may not have done. Patty's going to address that in her own time, in her own way. What I have said from the get-go is there's not an even playing field on this council when it comes to disciplinary actions. And originally, I had written out a list of everybody up here's shortcomings. And I was going to spill all the tea tonight, and I've decided against that. But what I'm going to tell you is that if Ann's own admission, she took her grievance outside of the city. She took her grievance and she went to a friend who writes well, as she said in an email today. She took her grievance outside of city legal place. And she went to a friend who writes well to come after Patty Wolf. There's nobody up here that hasn't done anything wrong. And I'm going to tell you, if you vote for this without hearing both sides of the story and everything, that's fine. But if there's protocols and procedures in place on how to handle a censure, and Ann bypassed every one of those, which again, we could censure her for that. But she bypassed all of that. And she didn't form her committee, she didn't do the thing, she just went, got a friend who writes well, wrote her censure. And so if that is the road that we're gonna start taking, then I think everybody up here will deserve a censure. And I guess that I'll start in October. So Danny, go ahead in October. I'll be starting to make censures against people, because if we can just go out and get somebody who writes well to write a censure without following protocol, what we're doing is we're setting a very dangerous precedent. Y'all adopted, because I voted against it, but last year, June of '24, y'all adopted a specific rules of conduct. Also, our charter calls for certain ways that business is handled, but Ann took it upon herself to go find a friend who writes well, to write a censure, to bring against Patty. And again, if you vote in favor of that, and this has nothing to do with Patty. This is about the procedure which was followed. So I'd just say, if that's the way we're going to do things, so be it.
Well, I'll have to disagree in this
Skip.
particular case.
Skip, may I respond, since that was directly at me and not at you?
Sure.
I didn't have someone write a censure. I don't have a grievance. I had someone write a resolution because I have been gone and I am clearly sick and I can't hear. I have bronchitis and a double ear infection. So for everybody that I've stared at this entire meeting, I'm reading your lips. So I have not had the bandwidth to do what I needed to do. Paul, I have a direct question for you. Have I violated any procedure, any ordinance? Have I done anything outside of what we voted to do last June in how we were going to hold ourselves accountable in our behavior?
As it relates to the bringing of this resolution for censure?
Correct.
No, not in my opinion.
Am I doing anything outside of the law? Am I doing anything, have I missed any steps
No.
in
not-
bringing this resolution forward?
No, you have not, in my opinion. Let me just be clear. My job is to y'all, but I
Right.
represent the city of Loganville. I don't represent any of y'all individually. My job is also to the federal and state constitutions, and by representing y'all, I also have an obligation to the Georgia Supreme Court, which lets me keep my bar card. So I would not knowingly let y'all do anything that's outside the parameters of the law. When this censure came up earlier this week to be requested to be added to the agenda, I did review it because I received a copy of it earlier this week. I noted that there were no signature lines, and your charter and your ordinance states that any action taken by the mayor and council and voted on properly must then be signed by the mayor and the city clerk, or the alternate city clerk. So I did notate that that needed to be changed if this were going to go forward. But just to be clear, I'm never going to let any of my clients do anything that they shouldn't do that's in violation of the law. So directly to your question, if there's a resolution or an action to censure a council member based upon the policies of the procedures and protocols that you passed last June, there's nothing that's been done incorrectly. But also to further answer that, those policies and procedures are an appropriate self-regulation of this corporate body. Those are not the same rules as your ethics ordinance. Just to be clear, your ethics ordinance has very specific protocols and rules for a very specifically listed, prescribed list of conduct or prohibited list of conduct. That prohibited list of conduct and anyone alleged to have violated that list of conduct, there is a particular protocol that involves investigation, the calling of a committee, the sitting of the ethics board, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are specific types of prescribed conduct that relates to, like I said, self-dealing. This policy and protocol that you passed was more for how this council interacts amongst itself and how it interacts with staff and how it treats confidential information that is different confidential information than what's listed in the ethics ordinance. The ethics ordinance addresses the use of confidential information for the purpose of personal gain. That's one way of addressing confidential. This policy and protocol addresses just making sure that we're not disclosing confidential information that we shouldn't be. So first, this is an appropriate exercise of your self-governance of your corporate body because you did pass this policy last year. And second, the bringing of a censure for an alleged violation is also an appropriate action under the policy as it's clearly stated in the policy that you adopted, which does have the force and effect of self-governance of the city council.
So to summarize, is it fair to say that the policies that we voted are self-governance? That we decided as a group that this is how we were going to behave, and if we didn't behave in that way, that these were the steps we were going to take as our own group to police ourselves?
That is correct. And that authority comes directly from your charter. Your charter envisions that you will govern yourselves, that you will create policies and rules on how to self-govern this corporate body. One of the others, a great example, is one of the other elements in this policy is we specifically stated, because y'all don't have it in your ordinance, that you would follow the 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order, We also identified the reality that we will only use Robert's Rules of Order if we have a
to.
parliamentary
Right.
disagreement on addressing basic motions and the like. So this is an appropriate adoption of policies for the self-governance of this board, in my legal opinion.
Thank you. The other thing I would like to say, just in general about executive session, for all of us elected officials, and for those of you who are in the audience who are running, who may become city council or mayor, when you sit in a room with people and you have an executive session, for me, the most important thing in sitting there is knowing that I can say how I feel or I say what I think, and that it's not going to be published to the public. We have a vow, we take an oath to not share that information. So that breach of trust for me is what is the most important.
And again, you could sit here and say you didn't, but you violated it twice.
Okay, Melanie,
And
stop.
you removed yourself
Stop.
from social media as a
Will you please
result.
state what you think I violated?
You published the MOU between Conley and the city.
Stop. I published the Haddow report on my campaign site, which had Connolly's wish list portion of the MOU.
Did that occur in executive session?
No, I did not publish what happened in executive session. I published the Haddow report, and as soon as Haddow had it, it was public record. The city attorney was aware
How
of what
come
happened.
every time I
No,
asked
no,
for
no, no,
open
no.
record,
Hush.
I was denied that?
Melanie, if you are going to make an accusation in public with me, then I have the right
Okay.
to tell you what happened. As soon as Haddow published that, it was public record. Haddow did not publish the signed back and forth of the Connolly report. If that had been published, if I had published the back and forth, that would have been not executive session, but attorney-client privilege. That is not what I published on my campaign site. It was the Haddow report that was public record. What's your next thing?
You removed yourself from social media because you violated executive session when you spoke about
The wage and salary?
Yes.
No. What I said was, I did remove myself from social media because what I said was, and if you go back to the YouTube, is what Paul said earlier, we can go into executive session. We spoke about an HR matter, specific people in executive session. When we came out of executive session, what we said was, out of executive session, we have an action item, which is to do a wage and salary study. I did not say that we talked about John Doe and Jim Smith and such, and those, what they're upset about is why we're doing this. I said, because of an executive session, we are doing the following action item. The reason I took myself out of social media in that whole email, which I am happy to publish, is because when I posted on Facebook that we were doing a wage and salary study, it created an email for Danny Roberts to do ORRs 3 pages long. And I actually apologized to council that I went on there and I said, I'm taking myself off of social media. I'm not doing this anymore. And to that day, I haven't done that. So what's your next thing that I've done that you think I've done wrong? Because neither of those two have any teeth at all.
That's
Hit me.
fine. I don't have, that was where my two.
Okay, so neither are correct.
But now we could go and talk about all your misinformation that you put to the public from the library, but we won't go down that road. I will withdraw that. But there are a lot of things that you've done. I'm
There
just
are a
saying,
lot
there's
of
no
things done.
even playing field. We have a mayor that urinated at the post office. There's no even playing field.
And
There
you
are a lot of
released
things that
something
have been
about-
done.
Do you know why we did the thing in June of last year?
Yeah, because y'all wanted to create an even playing field, but you
No,
have
what
not.
was the timing for that?
I have no idea.
What happened with the mayor, and that you posted something on social media
That's
about
right.
property that came.
That's
and
right.
We had no way to hold any of us accountable for good behavior.
And for the record, I made a
No,
statement.
no, no, can you
Yeah.
stop?
No.
Like, if you're gonna level an accusation, you do this all the time in
Okay.
email. You say something, I tell you the truth, and then you segue off. I've just said the
I
two
haven't
things. No,
segued
stop.
either.
I have just said the two things that you said that I
haven't
did
raised
are
my voice to
true.
you. You can lower your voice. I haven't raised my voice to you. You can calm down.
I am being accused up here of falsehood, and you are not agreeing that my points are correct. Then you're going on to something else. And now
I
you're
don't
talking
have
about
to
the
agree.
library.
I don't have to agree with your points.
No, but you do have to not slander me and say things that aren't right, like
Fine.
you've done historically.
Is that why I got a cease and desist?
Yes, ma'am, it sure is.
Is that the same person that wrote the thing
I'm
about
not telling
Patty?
you who wrote that, but have a good day. Anyway, on to the resolution. Mr. Mayor, is it appropriate for me to read this?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, also,
Should we vote on it first?
And I want everybody to understand, this is no fun. This is no fun. There comes times when you have to draw a line, and this is the line. Excuse me? Well, I know, we're getting into that. Just a second. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to put the post up that started this?
Sure. Michael, could you put that post up, please? Huh?
Mr. Mayor, I ask you to do decorum and not have the meeting interrupted from the audience, please.
Can't hear you well enough.
I was saying, but executive, when y'all go back into all these meetings, it's easy
I asked for order.
video recorded or,
Not in executive session, no.
so there's no evidence.
And that's intentionally that way.
Well, but you're accusing somebody of something without them having the proof or the evidence to back it up.
Well, we're getting
Mr.
ready to
Mayor,
show it to you.
he doesn't have a mic. I can't hear anything he's
Right.
saying, and I ask for order.
Mike, you got a mic?
Are we taking public comment in the middle of our meeting?
No, we have not. Okay, let's go ahead and read it.
This is the post that violated the release of data from executive session. I do not believe that it was intentional. I do not believe it was malicious. I don't believe any of that. It is still a violation of executive session. To read the resolution, Mr. Mayor?
I think it'd be only fair. I know it's a little long. Bill can help you.
It's just, yeah, and it's a little long. A resolution of the City Council of Loganville censuring council member Patricia Lynn Wolf for disclosure of confidential executive session information and publication of inaccurate statements. Whereas members of the City Council of Loganville are duly elected officials entrusted by the public to faithfully execute their duties in accordance with the Constitution, the laws of the state of Georgia, the city charter, and the council's rules and policies. And whereas executive sessions are authorized by law for limited purposes, including but not limited to the discussion of legal personnel and other sensitive matters, and the confidentiality of such sessions is critical to protect the interests of the city and its residents. And whereas all members of the City Council are bound by their oath of office and applicable law to maintain the confidentiality of executive session discussions and materials, and whereas Councilmember Wolf published on social media content relating to confidential information that was shared in the executive session of this council, and whereas the information published was not accurate and such misstatements served to mislead the public, erode trust in the integrity of this council, and cause reputational harm to the city of Loganville, and whereas this conduct has also damaged working relationships and diminished trust with Walton County officials, as well as with elected and appointed officials from other municipalities within Walton County, thereby undermining the city's credibility and regional cooperation, and excuse me, whereas the disclosure of confidential executive session information combined with the dissemination of inaccurate statements constitutes a serious breach of the ethical duties, responsibilities, and obligations of a member of this council, and whereas the City Council of Loganville has a duty to hold its members accountable for violations of trust and to preserve the integrity of its processes on behalf of the residents it serves. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Loganville that, number one, the City Council hereby formally censures Councilmember Patricia Lynn Wolf for disclosing confidential executive session information and for publishing inaccurate statements concerning such proceedings. Number two, the resolution of censure constitutes the council's official expression of disapproval of Councilmember Wolf's conduct and condemnation of the violation of confidentiality and trust inherent therein. Number three, the council reaffirms a commitment to maintaining the confidentiality of executive sessions, ensuring that accurate information is shared with the public only through lawful and appropriate channels, and upholding the standards of ethical conduct required of elected officials. Number four, Councilmember Wolf is strongly admonished to refrain from further breaches of confidentiality or dissemination of inaccurate information and is urged to conduct themselves in a manner that preserves public confidence in the City Council of Loganville. Mr. Mayor, I ask for a motion to approve and pass this resolution for your signature.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say yes.
Say
Yes.
yes.
Those opposed? Aye. Okay, it passes 4-1.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay? And again, nobody enjoys this. Many of our citizens say we should hold all the council members and then the mayor accountable. And then when it happens, some people don't like it. So I don't know how to do that. I can tell you, this particular situation, I had to field some questions from other cities because they were furious with us because this had been handled, and they want to know what in the hell we were doing. So with that said, so that passed 4-1, and I do have one other announcement that's on another subject real quick. This is concerning the library. Terry Radford, one of the city-appointed trustees on the O'Kelly Memorial Library Board, finished serving her first term on June 30th, 2025. The library board respectfully requests that she be reappointed to serve the second term for the city of Loganville with a 6-year term beginning on July 1st, 2025 and ending on June 30th, 2031. Ms. Radford lives within the city limits, and according to the people who have worked with her, she has been a really great asset since she's been on the board, and I am approving to her for another term. Okay. So with that said, we'll need a motion for adjournment. Okay, we have a motion for adjournment. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say yeah.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Thanks everybody for being here.